The day my wife left me for a rich man, she dragged a white suitcase across the hardwood I paid for and called our life small. Jessica stood by the front door of our house in Charlotte wearing the camel coat she bought after telling me we needed to be careful with money, her phone glowing in her hand with a name I had seen too many times to keep pretending it meant nothing. Ryan Caldwell. I was at the kitchen table in a rolled-up blue shirt, reading a report from work that had more zeros in it than my wife had ever cared to ask about. She looked at the papers, then at me, and smiled like the sight confirmed her decision. "I'm tired of pretending this is enough for me," she said. "Not the marriage. Not the house. This." She made it sound like I was furniture she had outgrown. I put the report face down. "Is this about Ryan?" She did not flinch. That was when I knew the goodbye had been rehearsed. People who are ashamed look away. Jessica looked straight at me because she had already turned her betrayal into ambition. "Ryan is not afraid to want more," she said. "He knows people. He moves in rooms you would never even be invited into." The strange part was that I did not get angry. Maybe anger needs surprise, and I had been losing surprise for months. Ryan had entered our marriage through stories at first, small and polished. Ryan got a table at the steakhouse without a reservation. Ryan drove a new black Mercedes. Ryan knew investors. Ryan had a penthouse view uptown. Ryan said I should think bigger. Every mention arrived like a coin dropped into a jar, and by the time Jessica packed the suitcase, the jar was full enough to buy her contempt. "You barely know him," I said. "I know what he is building." She gave a short laugh. "That is the difference, Andrew. He is building something." I looked around the kitchen she once cried in when we signed the mortgage, the kitchen where I cooked after her father's surgery, the kitchen where we ate pizza on paper plates because our first dining set arrived broken. I had built more in silence than Ryan had ever borrowed in shine, but I did not say that. Hidden power loses value when it begs to be recognized. "You think I am not?" I asked. "I think you are comfortable." She said it like an accusation. "You consult, you take calls, you disappear into meetings, and somehow nothing about our life changes. Same house, same weekends, same safe little plans." Safe. The word hit harder than rich. She used to love safe when her world was collapsing. She used to call me her calm place. Now calm had become evidence against me. Her suitcase bumped against the doorframe, and she looked annoyed, not sad, as if even the house was resisting her upgrade. "Ryan can give me a different life," she said. "The kind I should have had." I nodded slowly. "Did he tell you where he works?" Her eyebrows lifted. "Do not do that." "Do what?" "Act like you know something about his world." I almost smiled then, not because it was funny, but because the truth was standing in the room wearing work clothes, and she still could not recognize it. Ryan Caldwell worked for Miller Crest Holdings. Not near it, not beside it, for it. And I was the man whose signature sat above the board that decided whether men like Ryan rose, stalled, or quietly vanished from expensive rooms they mistook for their own. Jessica did not know because I had never wanted my marriage to become a stock portfolio. I wanted to be loved at breakfast, not valued after a balance sheet. She opened the door. "I am choosing someone who can take me somewhere." I looked at her suitcase, then at the ring still on her finger. "Then I hope the place he takes you belongs to him." She stepped out without understanding a word. After the door closed, the house did not feel empty. It felt insulted. Jessica had not slammed anything, which somehow made it worse. A slam would have admitted emotion. Her quiet exit sounded like certainty. I stayed at the kitchen table until the headlights faded beyond the cul-de-sac, then turned the report back over and stared at the quarterly acquisition summary for Miller Crest Holdings. The numbers were strong, the logistics division ahead of forecast, the real estate fund closing 2 weeks early. On paper, I was having the kind of year men like Ryan brag about before appetizers arrived at dinner. Yet my wife had just walked away, believing I was the appetizer. I folded the report and placed it inside the leather folder without rushing. That was the rule I learned from my father. Never make a decision while someone else is still enjoying the sound of your pain. He built a regional construction company from nothing, then lost half his peace when relatives began measuring love in percentages. By the time I inherited control and expanded it into Miller Crest, I had already decided my home would not become another boardroom. I told Jessica I consulted, because that was not entirely false. I consulted with our executive board, our legal team, our acquisition partners, and every nervous banker who wanted access to our capital. I also signed the checks that paid Ryan Caldwell's bonuses. Jessica knew none of that. Not because I hid a secret lie from her, but because I protected one part of myself from becoming the only part she saw. I wanted ordinary mornings, coffee, grocery lists, arguments about paint colors, a wife who loved the man across the table, not the signature buried under corporate stationery. Maybe that was naive. Maybe love tests people by what they do with what they do not know. I stood and walked to the front hallway. The white suitcase wheels had left 2 faint lines in the rug, like tracks from a small betrayal. On the entry table, Jessica had left the spare key, but taken the gold card Ryan had given her for a private dinner event that weekend. I had seen it earlier, tucked beneath her phone at breakfast. Crest Room, Ballantine Hotel, Saturday, 8 o'clock. Hosted by Caldwell and friends. She thought she was stepping through a door I could never open. I knew the ballroom manager by first name. My phone buzzed once. Jessica. I let it sit there until the screen went dark. Then another message appeared. I know you are upset, but please do not embarrass yourself. That sentence told me she had not left for love in any clean sense. Love does not require a warning against embarrassment before the first hour passes. She was managing my reaction like a public relations problem. I typed nothing. Silence is only weakness when you are waiting for permission. I was done waiting. I went upstairs to our bedroom, opened her side of the closet, and found the empty hangers where the expensive dresses used to be. Not all of them, just the ones that photograph well. On the dresser sat the wedding ring box from 11 years ago, pushed half behind a bottle of perfume. The ring itself was still on her finger when she left, which somehow felt strategic. She wanted the freedom of leaving and the optics of not being the woman who removed the ring first. I had spent enough years watching contracts to recognize a loophole disguised as sentiment. Downstairs, my phone rang. Jessica did not speak when I answered. I heard traffic, then her breath, then a man's laugh behind her. Andrew, she said, too quietly for confidence, you are still there? I looked toward the doorway where my wife had rolled her suitcase out for the first time. In the bathroom, her drawer held a receipt from a boutique near South Park, dated that morning. The black ink listed alterations, rush fee, and delivery to an address I knew too well, the Ballantine Hotel. Saturday was not just a dinner. It was Miller Crest Charity Gala, the annual room where senior employees performed ambition for donors, board members, and me. Ryan had brought my wife to the one place in Charlotte where pretending would become impossible. I put the receipt back exactly where I found it. Power does not shout. It waits for introduction patiently. Jessica did not answer when I said her name, but the silence on the line carried more than words could have. I could hear the low hum of traffic, the soft purr of a car interior, and Ryan laughing again somewhere, behind her like a man already celebrating a victory he had not earned. I only called because I want this to be civil, she said. Civil. She had rolled a suitcase out of our house, compared my life to a waiting room, and driven away with another man, but she wanted civility now that my reaction might affect the image she was building. Then be honest, I said. Are you with him? Her breath caught for half a second. Andrew, do not make this ugly. The truth is not ugly because I ask for it. She lowered her voice. Yes, I am with Ryan. There was, finally, a fact without costume jewelry. And Saturday? I asked. What about Saturday? The Ballantine Hotel. She went quiet again, but this time I heard Ryan say, Babe, we are going to be late. Babe. 11 years of marriage reduced to a word tossed over leather seats by a man whose expense reports crossed my desk every quarter. Jessica came back sharper. Do not start tracking me. I'm not tracking you. You left evidence in our bathroom. Our bathroom? She repeated, almost offended. You mean your bathroom now? You are the one who packed a suitcase. Because I needed to breathe. No, I said. You needed to upgrade. That landed. I could feel it through the phone, the way she paused, because I had named the thing she wanted to call courage. Ryan invited me to a charity gala, she said. It is a serious event. There will be executives, donors, people who actually do something. I looked at the leather folder on the counter. My name was embossed in small letters on the inside flap. Not flashy, not visible unless someone opened it. People who actually do something, I repeated. Yes, she said, mistaking my calm for defeat. Maybe it will be good for you to understand what ambition looks like. I almost told her then. I almost said Miller Crest was mine, that Ryan's title, his leased Mercedes, his polished invitations, even the gala he used to impress her existed under a structure I controlled. But revelation is like a match. Strike it too early, and all you get is smoke. I want a light. Did Ryan tell you who is hosting? I asked. His company. Did he tell you who chairs that company? She laughed softly. You would not know him. Probably not, I said. Enjoy your evening. I ended the call before she could turn the knife again. The house settled around me, still carrying traces of her departure. Her coffee mug sat in the sink with lipstick on the rim. A folded throw blanket hung over the couch where we had watched football every Sunday. On the hallway wall, a photograph from our trip to Asheville showed Jessica smiling against my shoulder, both of us younger, both of us dressed in clothes from a clearance rack because we were saving for the down payment. Back then, she did not care that my truck had rust over the wheel well. She cared that I drove through rain to bring her soup when she had the flu. She cared that I remembered her mother's birthday, that I fixed the leaking disposal, that I stayed calm when her old credit card swallowed half her paycheck. I paid those cards off quietly after our second anniversary. I never brought it up in arguments. I never placed generosity on the table like a receipt. Maybe that was my mistake. Some people only respect what comes with the spotlight. I opened my laptop and reviewed the guest list for Saturday. Ryan Caldwell was assigned Table 12, Senior Sales Director, Regional Partnerships. +1, Jessica Miller. My wife had entered herself into my world as another man's guest. Saturday arrived with the kind of blue Carolina sky that makes every polished building in Charlotte look more important than it is. I spent the morning at the office downtown, not because I needed to hide there, but because routine keeps grief from becoming theater. Miller Crest occupied the top 3 floors of a glass building Ryan probably pointed at when he wanted people to feel impressed. My name was not on the lobby wall in gold letters. I had removed it years earlier. The holding company did not need a monument. I did not need strangers deciding who I was before I opened my mouth. At 11, Grace Whitman, our general counsel, stepped into my office with a folder against her chest and the careful expression lawyers where when they know personal pain has wandered into corporate territory. Andrew, she said, are you certain you want to attend tonight as scheduled? Yes. She sat across from me. Ryan Caldwell is confirmed. His guest is listed as Jessica Miller. She did not add your wife. Grace was too good at her job for unnecessary wounds. I know. Human Resources flagged the optics after your assistant updated the chairman table. Good. Her eyebrow lifted slightly. Good. It means the system works before emotion touches it. Grace studied me for a moment. Do you want him removed from the event? No. Do you want security prepared? For what? People react strangely when status collapses in public. I closed the acquisition file on my desk. I am not creating a spectacle. He is an employee attending a company event. She is his guest. I'm a chairman giving remarks. That is all until they make it otherwise. Grace nodded, but she knew me well enough to hear the line underneath. I was not protecting Ryan. I was protecting the company from becoming my living room. At 2, Ethan Brooks, my assistant, brought in the final program. Black cover, silver lettering, charity partners, donor list, executive board, award recipients. Near the middle, beneath the evening remarks, it read, Andrew Miller, Chairman, Miller Crest Holdings. No photograph. No biography long enough to decorate anyone's ego. Just a name Jessica had heard for years at breakfast without understanding what it carried outside our kitchen. Table assignments are finalized, Ethan said. Ryan Caldwell is at 12, near regional sales. Leave him there. And Mrs. Miller. The title made the room tighten. She came as his guest, I said. Seat her as his guest. Ethan's face stayed professional, but his eyes softened. Good assistants know when not to offer sympathy, because sympathy can become another thing a man has to manage. After he left, I opened the bottom drawer and took out the watch my father wore the day he signed his first major contract. Plain steel, scratched near the clasp, worth less than half the watch Ryan liked to flash at client dinners. I put it on because it reminded me that real value survives without applause. By 5:30, I drove myself to the Ballantine Hotel. The front entrance was lined with black cars, valets moving quickly, women stepping out in gowns, men adjusting tuxedo jackets with the nervous importance of people who wanted to be seen arriving. Inside, the ballroom glowed with chandeliers and white flowers. Donors shook hands near the silent auction tables. Executives laughed too loudly. Waiters moved through the room with glasses of sparkling water and trays of polite food nobody would remember eating. I saw Ryan before he saw me. He stood near table 12 in a navy suit, one hand resting at the small of Jessica's back like he had purchased the right to guide her through the room. Jessica wore a deep green dress I recognized from the boutique receipt, her hair swept over one shoulder, her smile bright and practiced. She looked around the ballroom with hungry wonder, the way people look at a life they think has finally opened for them. Ryan leaned close and said something that made her laugh. Then he gestured toward the stage, proud as a tour guide. I stayed near the side entrance, half hidden by a column, and watched my wife admire the world she did not know I owned. For one brief second, sadness almost softened me. Then the master of ceremonies tapped the microphone, and the room began turning toward the stage. The master of ceremonies smiled into the microphone and welcomed everyone to the annual Miller Crest Charity Gala. And for the first time that night, Ryan stopped performing long enough to look nervous. I watched him straighten his jacket, smooth his tie, and lean toward Jessica with the confidence of a man explaining a world he did not control. She nodded, eyes bright, one hand resting lightly on the table, her wedding ring still visible beneath the chandelier light. That ring bothered me more than I expected. She had carried it into another man's evening like a passport she did not intend to use, proof that she could abandon the vows without losing the respectability they gave her. The master of ceremonies thanked the donors, named the charity partners, praised the executive board, then paused with the little theatrical breath people take before introducing power. And now, he said, "Please welcome the chairman of Miller Crest Holdings, Andrew Miller." The room rose in polite applause. Ryan clapped automatically for 2 seconds before understanding reached his hands. I stepped out from beside the column and walked toward the stage. I did not look at Jessica first. That would have turned a corporate event into a domestic scene, and she had already done enough confusing of worlds. I shook the master of ceremonies' hand, took the microphone, and faced the ballroom. From the stage, table 12 was easy to see. Ryan's face had emptied. Jessica's smile was still there, but it no longer belonged to her. It sat on her mouth like something forgotten. I began with the speech I had prepared days before she left. I spoke about long-term stewardship, about building companies that could survive trends, about responsibility to employees, families, and communities. I thanked the warehouse teams in Raleigh, the real estate partners in Greenville, the sales division in Charlotte, and the regional managers who kept promises after executives finished shaking hands. Every sentence was ordinary. That was what made it crueler. I was not exposing them. I was simply existing in the position she thought I could never reach. Wealth, I said near the end, is not measured by how loudly a person enters a room. It is measured by what remains steady after attention moves on. A few people nodded. Grace, seated near the board table, looked down at her program because she knew exactly how many meanings that sentence carried. I kept my voice calm. At Miller Crest, we value trust because trust is the only asset that takes years to build and one careless choice to damage. Jessica lowered her eyes. Ryan swallowed, so hard I could see it from the stage. When the applause came, I handed the microphone back and stepped down into the room as chairman, not husband. That distinction saved me from becoming the spectacle they deserved. Donors approached first. A banker from Atlanta shook my hand. A county commissioner thanked me for the foundation pledge. 2 board members asked about next quarter's acquisition vote. I answered each one with the same measured tone, while table 12 remained frozen in the edge of my vision. Ryan did not come to me immediately. Men like him understand hierarchy faster than they understand morality. Jessica did not move either. She sat with both hands in her lap, staring at the program as if the printed name might change if she looked long enough. Finally, Ryan stood. He adjusted his suit again, walked toward me with the careful steps of an employee approaching a door that might close forever, and Jessica followed because her new world had suddenly required permission from the old husband she had underestimated. "Mr. Miller," Ryan said, voice thin, professional, terrified. He had called me Andrew in stories, my wife's boring husband, the man without ambition. Now, his mouth knew the title before his pride could stop it. I turned to him and let the silence last one clean second. "Ryan," I said. Then I looked at Jessica, whose face had gone pale beneath perfect makeup. "I believe you two already know each other." Ryan opened his mouth, but nothing useful came out. Jessica whispered my name, not like a wife, but like someone realizing she had mocked the owner of the room she wanted to enter. Ryan's mouth opened twice before he found words small enough to survive the moment. "Mr. Miller, I did not realize," he said, then stopped because every ending to that sentence made him sound worse. He did not realize she was my wife. He did not realize I was his chairman. He did not realize the room he used to impress her belonged to the man she had left. Jessica stood beside him with one hand gripping the edge of her clutch, her eyes moving between us as if the truth might split into something easier if she looked fast enough. "Andrew," she whispered again. I kept my attention on Ryan because that was the cleaner problem. "This is not the place for personal explanations," I said. "Enjoy the remainder of the event. Human Resources will contact you Monday morning regarding a conflict of interest review." His face tightened. "Sir, I can explain. I am sure you can. Monday will be the appropriate time." Grace Whitman appeared to my left, not dramatically, just close enough to remind everyone that I had not arrived without structure. Ryan noticed her and swallowed. He knew her. Every ambitious employee knew General Counsel by reputation, the woman who could turn a hallway rumor into a document no one wanted in their file. Jessica stepped toward me. "Can we talk privately?" That word privately almost made me laugh. She had left our marriage publicly enough to attend my company gala as another man's guest, but now privacy sounded useful. "Not here," I said. "Please." Her voice cracked slightly, and I saw panic beneath the makeup. Not heartbreak. Not yet. Panic at the scale of what she had misunderstood. "I do not know." "That was the point," I said. "You made your choice based on what you thought I was not." Ryan looked at her then, and something ugly passed across his face. Blame travels quickly when status drops. Only an hour earlier, he had guided her through the ballroom like she was proof he had won. Now she looked like evidence. I turned back to him. "Ryan, return to your table." He nodded too quickly. "Yes, sir." The words landed between us like a receipt. Jessica heard them. I watched her understand that the man she called powerful still needed permission from the husband she called small. Ryan walked away first, not touching her back this time. That told her more than I ever could. She remained near me, surrounded by chandeliers, donors, and the soft noise of people pretending not to notice. "Andrew, I made a mistake," she said. "No, yen surat." A mistake is sending the wrong email. You made a decision, packed for it, dressed for it, and let another man bring you here wearing my last name. Her eyes filled. "I thought you were hiding from life." "I was protecting mine from becoming a performance." "Why did you never tell me?" That was the first honest question, but it was also the wrong one. Because I wanted to know whether the man at the kitchen table was enough before the chairman walked into a ballroom. She looked down at her ring. For once, it seemed heavy on her hand. A board member approached, paused when he saw her face, then wisely redirected himself toward Grace. I lowered my voice. "Leave the event with dignity. Do not make Ryan's problem bigger, and do not make our marriage a scene." "Our marriage?" she asked, fragile hope rising too fast. I shook my head. Do not mistake restraint for forgiveness. That finished whatever she had been trying to hold together. She stepped back, and for the first time since I had known her, Jessica looked ordinary in a room full of expensive things. I walked away before pity could dress itself as weakness. Behind me, the gala continued, glasses chiming, applause rising, money moving toward charity, careers leaning toward opportunity. The world did not stop because my wife finally saw me. That was the lesson she had missed. Real power had never been waiting for her approval. By the time the gala ended, Ryan had learned the difference between a borrowed room and an owned one. I watched from near the exit as he stood beside table 12, smiling too late, laughing too softly, answering questions no one had asked. Jessica was no longer beside him. She had disappeared into the ladies' lounge after our conversation and returned with her makeup repaired, but not her certainty. The green dress still looked expensive, yet something about her had become smaller inside it. She did not approach me again. That was wise. Grace found me near the silent auction table, where a donor had placed an absurd bid on a vacation package I had quietly donated through one of our hospitality partners. Ryan left a voicemail for human resources already, she said. He wants to get ahead of the misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding. I know. Grace's voice stayed professional. Do you want the review limited to conflict of interest? I looked across the ballroom. Ryan was checking his phone with the urgency of a man trying to locate a door that no longer existed. Start there. Include expense reports, client entertainment, corporate card usage, and any representation of company authority outside approved channels. Grace nodded once. That may become larger than tonight. Then let it become accurate. She studied me for a second. And Jessica? I picked up a glass of water from a passing tray, mostly to give my hand something calm to do. Jessica is not an employee. No, Grace said, but she is part of the facts. That sentence stayed with me. Part of the facts. Not my wife laughing at my jokes. Not the woman who once fell asleep holding my hand in a hospital waiting room. Not the person who used to call our ordinary Sundays enough. A fact. A name beside Ryan's on a seating chart. A guest at table 12. A visible consequence. Near 10:30, I stepped outside under the hotel canopy. The Charlotte night was warm, the valet line full of black cars and polished shoes. My phone had 16 missed calls from Jessica, 3 messages from Ethan, and 1 from my sister asking if I was all right. I answered none of them at first. I needed a minute without anyone trying to define what had happened. Then Jessica came through the revolving doors. She moved quickly, clutch in one hand, coat over her arm, eyes searching until they found me. Andrew. I did not walk away, but I did not step toward her either. Do you have a ride? I asked. The practical question seemed to hurt her more than anger would have. Ryan left. Of course he had. Men like Ryan stay close to beauty when it raises their status. They step back from damage when it threatens their file. Call a car, I said. Can you please just listen to me? I listened at the house. I was wrong. That is not a confession. That is a headline. She swallowed. And for once she did not argue immediately. I thought you were settling. I thought you had stopped trying. No, I said. You thought effort only counted when strangers applauded it. Her eyes filled, but the valet stand was not a church, and tears were not vows. I did not know who you were. That sentence finally turned something cold in me. You knew who I was at breakfast. You knew who I was when I paid your father's medical bills without embarrassing him. You knew who I was when I sat through your business plans, your doubts, your bad days, and your dreams. You knew the husband. You just did not think he was worth as much as the title. She looked down at her ring. Can I come home? I shook my head. Not tonight. A black SUV pulled forward. The valet opened the door for me. Jessica stood under the hotel lights, surrounded by the life she had mistaken for value. I got in, closed the door, and watched her become smaller in the tinted glass as the car pulled away. The next morning, I returned to our house before 7 because I wanted the truth to arrive before excuses had time to dress themselves. Jessica was not there. Her suitcase was gone, the coffee maker was cold, and the kitchen looked exactly as she had left it, except for the silence. I stood beside the table where she had once told me this house was proof we could build anything together, and I noticed the wedding ring box still pushed behind the perfume bottle in the bedroom. The ring itself was not there. She still had it. That choice told me she wanted the door open without admitting she had walked through another one. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and called Grace Whitman at 8:15. She answered on the second ring. I expected you, she said. Then you know why I am calling. Personal separation or corporate exposure? Both, but separate them. That mattered. I was angry, hurt, humiliated in a way I had not expected from a room I owned, but I was not going to use a company as a weapon because my marriage had become a cautionary tale. Grace respected that. I will prepare names for a family law attorney outside our firm, she said. For Ryan, Human Resources begins the review this morning. Expense reports, client entertainment, outside representations, and undisclosed relationship concerns. Keep it clean. Always. After we hung up, I sat with the coffee and looked at the leather folder on the table. For years, I thought discretion was humility. Maybe it was. But discretion also gave Jessica enough empty space to write her own version of me. In that version, I was comfortable, ordinary, safe in the way old furniture is safe. She never asked what the calls were about. She never asked why bankers sent gifts at Christmas, why my travel days lined up with acquisition closings, why men in expensive suits sometimes lowered their voices when they called. She saw the quiet and decided it meant absence. At 9:40, Ryan called. I did not answer. 10 minutes later, his email arrived, formal and frightened. He wrote that he had not understood the full context of Jessica's marital situation, that he believed she was separated, that any overlap with company events was unintentional. Men like Ryan do not lie creatively when legal departments are involved. They lie in bland sentences designed to leave no fingerprints. I forwarded it to Grace without comment. At 10:20, Jessica finally came home. I heard her key turn, then stop when it did not work. I had not changed the locks. She was using the wrong key, probably flustered, probably from the apartment Ryan had promised was temporary luxury. I opened the door. She stood on the porch in the same green dress under a wrinkled coat, eyes tired, hair pinned badly, the shine of the gala gone from her face. I did not know where else to go, she said. This is your house too, I answered. Do not perform homelessness. She stepped inside carefully, as if the rooms might reject her. Her gaze went to the table, then the folder, then me. Ryan says Human Resources called him. They did. Are you trying to ruin him? I almost laughed. Even then, part of her was still checking whether Ryan could be saved. No, I'm trying to keep my company honest. He is scared. He should be. She lowered her eyes. I'm scared too. Of losing me, or losing what you found out I was. The question took the color from her face. She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, I do not know how to answer that without sounding awful. That may be the first honest thing you have said. She looked toward the kitchen table where I had placed her spare key, the same spot where she left our life for a better one. Can we talk? I stepped aside. We could talk, but we are not negotiating my value anymore. Jessica sat at the kitchen table without taking off her coat, as if removing it would mean accepting that the house still knew her. I poured coffee for both of us, not because I felt kind, but because habit sometimes moves before the heart catches up. She wrapped her hands around the mug and stared into it. I was stupid, she said. Yes. The answer was too plain for her to fight. I thought Ryan had something I wanted. He did. She looked up. What does that mean? He had the appearance of a life you had decided I could not give you. Her eyes filled, but she did not interrupt. That was new. I saw the suit, the car, the hotel, the way people treated him, and I thought. She stopped. Say it. I thought you were smaller than him. There was, finally, without perfume, without ambition language, without pretending betrayal was self-discovery. It hurt, but clean pain is better than decorated lies. And after last night? I asked. She looked toward the hallway where the white suitcase had rolled over the rug. After last night, I realized I did not know what small was. I almost admired the sentence until I remembered it had taken a ballroom full of chandeliers to teach her what breakfast had failed to prove. Jessica, you didn't know me. She shook her head, desperate. Not all of you. You knew the part that mattered to a wife. You knew whether I came home. You knew whether I kept promises. You knew whether I showed up when your family needed help. You knew whether I made this house safe. My voice stayed calm, but every word cost something. You just did not think those things were expensive enough. She covered her mouth. I'm sorry. I believe you are sorry for more than one reason. She nodded, and that honesty landed heavier than any apology. I am sorry I humiliated you. I am sorry I made you feel like you had to prove yourself. I am sorry I let Ryan make me feel chosen when I was already married to a man who chose me every day. For the first time, she did not ask whether she could come home. She did not ask what would happen to Ryan. She did not ask if the company review could be softened. She only slid the wedding ring off her finger and placed it on the table between us. I do not deserve to wear this while you decide, she said. That was the first thing she had done in days that felt like respect instead of strategy. I looked at the ring. 11 years sat inside that small circle, the hospital waiting rooms, the mortgage meetings, the clearance rack vacations, the quiet Sundays she had dismissed as a small life. I am contacting a separation attorney, I said. Her shoulders folded, but she nodded. Is it already over? It was over the moment you needed my title to recognize my worth. The paperwork is just catching up. She cried then, but quietly, not as a performance. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, Charlotte moved through another clean morning, neighbors backing out of driveways, delivery trucks turning corners. Life continuing with no interest in my grief. Later that week, Human Resources placed Ryan on administrative review. Grace found enough expense irregularities and unauthorized client claims to make his problem larger than Jessica. I did not celebrate. A man losing borrowed shine is not victory. It is accounting. Jessica moved into a short-term rental and began counseling on her own. She sent one message after our first meeting with the attorney. You were never small. I was shallow. I read it once, then put the phone down. Months later, the ring went into the original box. I did not throw it away. I did not keep it on the table either. Some things deserve memory, not worship. Jessica left me for a man she thought could take her higher, and found out he had been standing in my lobby the whole time. But the real lesson was not that I was his boss. The real lesson was that power means nothing if someone must see it on a stage before they respect it at home.